right, that was Pinky's parents. This is CCTV footage, Shiv, that I believe that is coming in right now that we're getting to our viewers.
It's 8:45, so it's actually just minutes before the crash actually took place. 8:45 is when, all right, so
there it is.
So 8:46 confirmed now, Shiv, that you had the exact moment of impact. 8:46, the CCTV close to that airstrip in Baramati. And this is the exact moment of impact where you see in just a while, behind that shed, looks like some kind of a roadside eatery, you will see a ball of flame go up. And that is the moment when the private plane crashed, carrying Ajit Pawar and four other people on board.
So, from this angle, from this direction that the CCTV has captured this image, it suggests that it's pretty much in the distance because you can't see the aircraft going down. So it's obviously slightly over the horizon. Remember, the horizon line disappears after about a kilometer and a half. That's how little vision we actually have when we're looking in a straight line. And here, that ball of flame appears to be just beyond the horizon line, where that huge plume and that fireball erupts into that plume of smoke. The aircraft is not visible, so it is possible that the aircraft was attempting to land. That is something we already know. So it must have had some kind of a controlled descent. Didn't simply dive out of the sky as some people might be thinking in their minds when they look at a fireball of this kind. But remember that when an aircraft is approaching the ground, and again I want to issue that disclaimer that we don't know yet all the circumstances or the criteria under which this aircraft went down. But it seems that the aircraft was, descending in a controlled manner, may have misjudged altitude. Poor visibility is what the pilot had reported, even though, Padmaja and Vedika, I want to point out that in these images, visibility doesn't appear to be an immediate problem. But again, I don't want to jump the gun on that because visibility means different things at different altitudes. In just a few hundred feet of altitude, visibility can change very, very dramatically, especially in winter conditions. So this establishes, what was borne out by the earlier image we saw of the complete destruction and the debris field that we saw, that this was not a crash landing. This was not any kind of controlled landing. This was a catastrophic impact with the ground.
Shiv, we're being told that the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, a team is on its way from Delhi to Pune, and they will get to Baramati in a while to inspect and start the investigation of what happened here.
That's right. And images like these, and remember that if you've got CCTV pictures of this angle of the impact, it's quite reasonable to assume that there will be other images as well, including from the Baramati airfield itself, even though the possibility of that is a little less because, as I understand it, and as the data coming in from flight radar suggests, the impact point was a few kilometers away from the airfield. So remember, it may not have been able to capture it, but this seems to be a couple of kilometers from where it has impacted. All such visual evidence becomes extremely crucial to the investigation. They've got material evidence in terms of the mangled debris on the ground. The flight data recorder would have been recovered already. The tail portion of the plane that you saw, which was largely intact, that in fact is where the black box of the aircraft is stored. That becomes front and center to the investigation. But apart from all of that, this information, the visual information, becomes crucial. Take your, I take your memory back to Flight AI 171. CCTV video and mobile video had captured every aspect of that aircraft going down. And that's one of the reasons why, the preliminary investigation report was able to come out so quickly. In this particular case, I wonder whether this visual and maybe other visuals will help them, figure out what just happened. Just one slightly unsettling nugget that we've just picked up. The 2023 accident that this aircraft, faced in Mumbai, Padmaja and Vedika, a final accident report more than 2 years later is still not out. There's only a preliminary report. The DGCA did not come out with a final report, so we don't know yet what happened in that respect. I don't want to conjecture, but maybe that will be part of this investigation.
And this is an aircraft that is being used by the Deputy Chief Minister, no less. Very interesting and very important, these images that are on your screen right now. As we speak, there is a huge, huge crowd of supporters that has now reached Baramati. The preparations for the last rites of Ajit Pawar have already begun. Union Home Minister Amit Shah hasn't yet left for the final rites, but has released a statement condoling his death. Meanwhile, we also know more about the pilot who was in fact flying this aircraft. Captain Shambhavi Pathak had been associated with the company since 22. She studied aviation at the University of Mumbai, later underwent flight training at New Zealand International Commercial Pilot Academy between 2018 and 2019. Very young lives. 2 crew members, Pinky Mali and Captain Shambhavi Pathak, also losing their lives. And of course, 2 very close aides of Ajit Pawar. Total of 5 people who were on board this ill-fated flight. But you were talking about visibility, and to a layperson, Shiv, and why we want to keep talking about these images. When you think of low visibility, you think of usually what we experience here in Delhi in the winter months, where there is, it's fogged out. You can not see beyond your nose. But this looks relatively clear. Even through the CCTV camera, you can look far beyond the eatery. You can see what's happening in the distance. So all of this is going to be very, very important when it comes to the actual investigation. The whole angle of low visibility and the runway not being visible, like you were mentioning earlier.
That's right. And, it bears repeating that, low visibility means literally the difference between life and death when it comes to aviation, especially during the crucial approach phase, the final approach phase of an aircraft. Visibility plays a huge factor because remember, when an aircraft is descending, you're losing altitude very rapidly. And if you've got low visibility, the space you have for recovery, for emergency maneuvers becomes wafer thin. All of these will become very, very explicit and specific once the investigation gets the black box details. Now, 2 things are going to become very crucial. 1, whether there's going to be more visual evidence apart from this. 2, and Padmaja, this is crucial, the communications. Remember, the pilots, Captain Shambhavi Pathak, young upcoming pilot, terribly, terribly sad for her family. She and her, the other pilot in the cockpit, would have been in radio communication with ground control. Whether in Pune or in, or the ground control staff at the Baramati airfield. What communications were taking place? Because remember, they attempted to land once, couldn't land. They looped back around to try and attempt again. 100% there would have been some communications because, aircraft are not autonomous. They don't fly by themselves. There is constant communication happening on the ground, especially during the landing phase. So those audio communications, which obviously would have been duly recorded as well, those will also be part of the investigation.
And Shiv, we were told that about 8:45 is when it went off the radar.
Yeah.
So that last 1 minute is highly critical to understand what went down quite literally. And when you see that ball of fire, from here it's pretty obvious there could not be any survivors.
Yeah.
Given the massive ball of fire.
Yeah, and remember the aircraft going off the radar, like I said earlier today, there are only 2 circumstances in which an aircraft goes off the radar. 1, if there is a very unlikely catastrophic systemic failure in the air where its transponder goes off and every other sensor malfunctions and there's a catastrophic electrical failure and the aircraft becomes suddenly invisible while still being steady in flight. The other is what we're seeing here.
All right.
It disappears from the radar because it has simply crashed.
Okay,